Oh, it's that time again. It's time to have a beer with Ian. And I am Ian.
I'm Ian.
I'm Ian. I am an Ian through and through.
And I'm Ian as well.
This is the one and only podcast for Ians by Ians, as we all come together for a beer, enjoy each other's company, and discuss Ian-related topics and ideas. Now come on over, bring up a chair right next to us, order your favorite beer, and above all, enjoy the show. Now let's go. What up, what up? It's having a beer with Ian time. I'm Ian.
And I'm Ian.
Yeah, that's Ian. And so this is our second episode for the season 2. But if anybody watching along is not aware, we have an actual podcast, which this would be like our 20th episode now. So check out Having Beer with Ian on iTunes, Spotify, any other podcast platform. But how's it going, man?
Man, it's going good, dude. I've been working late nights. I've been tired, but I'm out here. Here. I'm ready. Feeling good.
Oh yeah.
What you drinking on? What you drinking on right now, Ian?
That's a good question. I'm having Tecate in a big ass beer mug.
Ooh, that's classic. Is that a frosted mug? That's a regular mug.
Nah, I forgot to frost it.
That's good.
It's frosted.
They say you don't want to frost it because then it dilutes the beer. Have you heard this? The moisture of the frozen like water gets frozen on the mug, right? And it actually waters down the beer. It makes sense, right?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, it does make sense. What about you? What are you drinking on?
Oh man, I'm in a sour mood these days, dude. I'm all pissed about all these long work hours I've been having. So I'm quenching my thirst with a Dogfish Head Sea Quench Ale.
What's up.
It's a session sour, reminiscent of like a lime goza, but a little bit hoppier, a little bit less bitter. You know, I'm enjoying it though. Nice summer beer.
I'm really surprised that you're not. It's not Modelo time, as it was the entirety of the first season.
You know, you got to switch it up sometimes. I heard there was a contamination in the Modelo plant south of New Orleans, so I just want to play you better safe than sorry, right?
I would at first. I'd be like, "Oh shit, are you kidding?" But I know you're always kidding. So,
I mean, I'll post links later. Check down below links to it was a chlorella outbreak at the Modelo factory.
Well, that's interesting. I'm about like 30% on board. But anyway, so this is the most popular episode on our first season by far was Rock Talk, where we brought in the Ian from the Well, which is a very badass band from my town in Austin. Anybody who's not aware, check out the Well if you're really into like Black Sabbath. They're very close to Black Sabbath, that like doom stoner metal type. And so that was popular. And then we had Rock Talk Ian from the podcast Rock Talk. He came, and you were there. And so I thought we should definitely do more Rock Talk episodes. So we actually have a guest. I'm about to bring him on. He's a bass player, a phenomenal bass player. He's on YouTube, many YouTube videos I've been watching. He's also a bass teacher, specifically with this program called Scott's Bass Lessons, which I'll let him explain that. But Scott's Bass Lessons is really amazing. If you want to check out, learn how to play bass from all different, like from just starting out to like intermediate, advanced, like they're really good. So I'll go ahead and quit bullshit and bring him in. So welcome, Ian Allison.
Yes. I'm surrounded by Ians, and it feels so right.
Yeah. Right.
How's it going, Ian?
What's going on, Ian?
Man, good to see you. What you got there? P bass in the background there?
Oh, I thought you were talking about my beverage, which is decidedly not a beer. And when I knew that this
I'm
podcast,
sorry. No, he's He's not drinking beer. We can't have him on. No, I'm just joking.
Dude, just episode's over. It's just over. It's funny, man. Like, I wish that I had a better story I wish I had like a sordid past of like, oh man, I went through some shit and I've been clean for like, a bunch of years. But really what it was is I grew up in this little town in Montana and I didn't feel like I fit. And so many of the people, like I was like a real nerdy music kid, and so many of it was like a cowboy town and it was like just drinking hard. And I just never felt like I knew those kids and they were like nice to me. And so I drew this line in the sand of like, well, I think I'm just not going to go to those parties. But I also like wasn't invited to those parties. Like it was like, but then it became this thing of like every point in my life, someone would say to me like, hey, oh, when you go to college, you're going to drink. Oh, when you go to Scotland, you're going to drink. And it's just been this weird thing of like, I'm just gonna hang on to this and see how long it lasts. And I'm 42 years young, and I'm still just drinking LaCroix. But I wish I had a better tale of like, oh yeah, man, it was intense. The drinking days were rough, but they weren't because they didn't exist.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's no problem.
Speaking of Ians that don't drink, I don't know if you're a fan of hardcore punk rock, but it's a band called Minor Threat with the lead singer Ian Mackay.
Sure. I mean, I know the band well, but I didn't know that was the case with him. That's awesome.
Yeah. Ian Mackay. He's my personally most famous Ian. He's the Ian that I would get the most excited to meet, being a fan of Minor Threat and Fugazi and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure.
But man, the whole straight edge thing, dude. Like I could totally understand it, man. Just like a lot of the people that I would drink and party with as a young kid, there were a lot of douchebags there, man. It's a sordid scene, and like I wouldn't want my nieces or nephews hanging out there, But like, it's the path that I chose, and now that where does that find me? 30-something guy in an apartment with some beers and talking on a podcast. I don't mind it.
Hey, it could be worse. And let me ask you guys this question: how do you feel about Ian?
Yeah.
Like,
I never met him.
So, like, do you guys remember Ian Ziering? I mean, I'm dating myself. He was like on a show. Shoot, I don't even know what show he was on. But do you associate with people that pronounce it Ian?
Well, I've never met an Ian before, but or you mean people who pronounce aren't like they're talking to me in this?
No, like it's spelled the same. Although I think his name is spelled Ian, but let's just say it's spelled Ian. But yeah,
it was on Beverly Hills 90210. Yeah.
Yes, dude. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I never watched that.
Ian Ziering, he was. Well, hey, this is right up your alley, Webman, the host. If you look up his IMDb, he's actually in like 3 or 4 Sharknadoes. So
yes, that's right. Yes, dude. Okay. Yes, that was his thing. Like post Beverly Hills 90210. Like he was in all the Sharknado movies. Yes. So let me ask you this. Okay. Here's a question. He pronounces it Ian. Would you have him on the podcast?
Yes. Yes. We've gone over. See,
it would be a controversial episode for sure.
Have you joined the council yet, Ian?
I don't know which Ian you're referring to. Are you referring to me?
Yeah, he's talking to you.
I have not joined the council, but it sounds like a duty that if I'm invited to, I should probably partake in.
I mean, it's a good time. It's a very probably the most positive place on the internet. That's
it's very uplifting. Like people just post anything, and everybody's like, "Oh hell yeah!" But I mean, really, like if somebody's having a bad day, they'll be like, "Yeah, I'm not feeling very Ian today."
Yeah.
Life's kind of going downhill, and then everybody's like, "Nah, man, that sucks that it's happening to you," but this, and then we have like very recently we had a younger guy who was going through relationship problems, and then he was like helped through all the Ian community.
That's incredible.
Yeah,
this sounds like a place that I need to be. I could use a little. Great. I could use a little like Ian support in my life.
Right,
that sounds great.
Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
Who wouldn't? And every once in a while we'll get the asshole Ian, and then I'm actually a moderator of that group too. The creator of the group is also on this podcast, but he wasn't able to join for this episode. But we work as a team to like make sure everything's handled. If somebody's actually like being prejudiced, it's a very like LGBT positive community too.
Rad. That's
and
great.
So anytime somebody's being like homophobic or racist, prejudiced in any way, they're out of there.
Damn.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I like that. I like the line in the sand. Just because you're Ian doesn't mean you're a great guy.
Yeah, and it's a place, you know. We try not to get political in the group and stuff, but you know, people will post what they post, and it a lot of, you know, it brings a lot of people to you know, more ancillary views to light. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure, sure. Well, I'll check out the council.
Yeah,
man.
And then we were talking before we started going live. I talked to you about it when I contacted you, and then you mentioned it at Ian Con. So
I've been telling my family. I have
Really?
I have already told my family that I'm going to Ian Con.
yeah.
So like
All right, well,
it has to happen.
Right now, Firefest was more well organized, so we got a ways to go, but we're working towards something. We're getting there. We're selling merchandise to make profits for underprivileged Ians to get, you know, bus rides and whatnot. And
incredible.
In fact, since you brought it up, I guess we'll just stop for a very short commercial break.
That is a tasty beer. Oh, hey, didn't see you there. You know, I like my beer just as much as the next guy. But when I drink it, I like to drink it in a good old pint glass. That way I can really taste that beer. And so I got myself having a beer with Ian pint glass. That way I can now have a beer with Ian while I'm having a beer with Ian while being Ian. And now you too can have a beer with Ian by getting your very own pint glass right here at our merch store. Link right here. And hey, while you're there, go ahead and pick yourself up a Having a Beer with Ian t-shirt. Having a beer with Ian has never been so much fun.
I need these things. I need these things in my life. I need the shirt. I need the pint glass. Come on.
Well, not only that, but we have only Ians. We have we have a picture like only fans, but it's only Ians, and we have like all the celebrity Ians, all of them like lined up, and all sorts of stuff. I'll send you the link, but I'll also put it in the description of the YouTube video.
And like we said, the proceeds, nobody's really profiting off that. The proceeds are going towards getting Ian's to Ian Con when we do have it, which should be in Chicago. What are we aiming for? 2022 now? Is that the aim?
Yeah, hopefully.
Right. And now just to lay down some groundwork that we've talked about it many times, but this is with an ultimate goal of beating the world record of the most people with the same first name in the same place at the same time.
What is the record now?
The current record is, I think it's somewhere around Ian, isn't it like 1,400 Ivans? Isn't that what it is?
And it's Ivan,
which is how many is in the Facebook group right now.
It's a lot of Ivans. They were in I think it was in like Bulgaria or the Ukraine or something like that. But it was one of those like Soviet satellite countries, but they broke the record with Ivans, which I think is just calling us out. And I think we need to respond.
It's bait. They're trolling us. The Ivans are trolling us.
They know we know, but they are. But you know, it's funny. You mentioned that you've already told your family you're going to Ian Con.
Yeah.
The funny thing about me, my parents, I'm an only child, and I'm not really close to my family outside of my parents. They just moved to Spain. Right before the pandemic started. And so now that things are starting to open up a little bit, I mean, it's still going to be a while, but they want me to visit them in Spain. And I'm like, there's Ian Con. I mean, of course, I want to go to Spain and visit my parents, but I mean,
but you're going to prioritize Ian Con. I can tell. I can already tell.
We have enough Ians that are located in the UK. We could have a Euro Ian Con.
Yeah, that's true.
Dude, then
But
it's best of both worlds. Two birds, one stone.
Right?
Yep. Or like
Yeah.
two birds, one stone. Do you know what I mean? Oh,
Yeah.
Hey, cheers.
LaCroix. Sorry. Just every time I'm just like,
No
sorry.
worries.
I'm sorry.
Never apologize for a pamplemousse.
But no, I mean it's cool. We're having a beer with you, and I'm a fan, like I said, of your YouTube videos and Scott's bass lessons and all that. Which I was gonna ask for you to give more information on for those who don't know.
Sure.
But before we do, something to ask all our guests. Were you named after anybody famous? And if you could sit down and, I guess, kick it with any famous two Ians, living or dead, who would they be?
That begs the question: do I know two famous Ians? And I probably should have done some research. Can I put Sharknado, Ian Ziering into my answer?
Yeah,
And then I don't know. Can you guys give me a couple of other famous Ians?
Very
popular is
yeah.
Ian McClellan is a popular one. The actor.
Why don't I know him? That's terrible.
Was he?
Oh,
he was,
you gotta hate yourself once you find out who he is.
It's like Magneto, right? Magneto.
Sure.
Gandalf.
Yep.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, he'd be
and
cool.
a big one is Ian Anderson from Jethro Tull.
Oh, dude,
Yep.
yes.
Yep.
You guys, thank you. You served up the softballs, but at least I came up with Ian Ziering. I'm sorry, that's my answer number one. And Ian Anderson, Jethro Tull. Dude, I saw. Oh, yeah, dude. Look at that guy. Look at that hunk. Look at those penetrating blue eyes, you guys. Like that is like
this guy.
That
rules.
is some intensity right there.
Yeah,
I'd ride his Sharknado. You know
yeah, you would. Who wouldn't?
Look at those blue eyes, man. You're right. Those eyes are fucking.
Saying. They're just that's like some Night King eyes piercing through you. You know what I mean? Man. Okay. But I answered these questions out of order. What was the first question?
Were you named after anybody famous?
Oh no, I have Scottish relatives, and I mean, like I was just gonna say too. Like when I saw you guys, I'm like, oh my god, are all of us like pale white glasses, bearded dudes? Like maybe
actually, yeah. That's usually the case when we do these video chats. It's usually it's either like.
I'd say it's like a 4 to 1.
White dude, glasses, beard, long hair, overweight. That's usually one of those in there.
But we have Ians of all sizes, races, genders. We got Ians from Indonesia, from Africa, from fucking the Philippines.
We have
love it.
We have a couple female Ians. Like
that's amazing.
Too.
I have never met a female Ian.
Right.
Yep,
well, actually,
there's only two.
We had one on the show, but actually, her connection was really bad, so we weren't able to do that episode. But
we need to get her back on. We need to get her back on.
Definitely. When she has a better connection, she said that when her mom was pregnant with her, they assumed she'd be a boy, so she named her Ian, and they found out she was a girl, but they were like, nah.
And they just still went with it. It's cool. It's a cool ass girl name. I mean, that's
like
great.
Charlie.
Yes, exactly, dude. I have a daughter named Everly, but we almost named her Charlie. We were this close.
Really?
Her middle name's Charles. So yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, you were. It was either Everly Charles or Charlie Everls.
Charlie. yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But back to the famous Ians, another really big one is Lemmy from Motorhead.
Oh, can't forget Lemmy.
I didn't know that. Dude, you guys are blowing my mind right now. Because that
would probably be the most famous bass player. Would it be him or would it be Scott Ian? Most famous.
Well, no, he's a guitarist. Scott Ian's a guitarist. Yeah.
Well, he plays big.
And I also feel like, is his name Scott?
Yeah, so Ian would be his last name. Yeah,
we've discussed this as well, and I would have a hard time turning down Scott Ian from a council admission.
Yes.
Yeah.
and seeing as he also, it's not his birth name, but he does pass it down to his children. So like he's gonna create more Ians than he brought into this world. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, and you guys, I didn't know that Lemmy was named Ian. I had no idea.
Yeah, it's
And that's
Ian
bad.
Killmeister.
Yeah, Killmeister. He has the cool. Like, why would he need a nickname with a name like Ian Killmeister?
It's incredible.
Yeah,
that's bad form
Although
for
it
me
is
too
cool
because I'm
that
a
you can
bass
just
player.
say, yeah, right. It's cool you can just
Yes.
say Lemmy and everybody knows who he is. Yeah, speaking of
Everybody
which,
knows.
he's a very unique bass player. The fact that like he's more of like a really mucky rhythm guitar player.
Yeah, totally. He had a
Yeah.
vibe. He always played Rickenbackers, right?
Yeah,
Like
oh,
something
yeah.
like this. And I mean,
that is so sweet.
oh, I love these. He had
Yeah.
such a great sound on this instrument. And yeah, he treated it more like a big guitar. It was
Yeah,
just
he played a
had
lot
all
of
this.
chords.
Yeah. It was very cool. So hats off to Lemmy. Ian Killmeister. Incredible.
Yeah, right. Rest in peace. You know, I right like very shortly before he died, he came here to Austin, and it was really sad because this was the first time I'd seen Motorhead too, and they played 2.5 songs, and then he couldn't do it and just walked off stage.
Oh,
And
that
the whole
sucks.
band followed after him, and then he came back with a cane. And he said, I'm sorry, I just can't do it, but, how about next time? But unfortunately, there wasn't a next time. It was probably about 5 months before he died.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, but at the same time, I do, cherish the memory of seeing Motorhead right before.
And take it out of your own perspective and put it in his. I mean, he spent his final days touring, doing the very thing that
absolutely. I'm not
true.
mad at him or anything. I was actually really depressed after that show. I was like, not depressed that I lost my money and I only saw 2 songs, but that he couldn't perform. That's what I was really bummed out about.
Yeah. It's really hard to see your idols or rock stars as mere mortals. You know what I mean? Instead of I remember I saw Rush. They were a huge band for me, and I remember seeing them and near the end for Neil Peart. No one knew that he had cancer. But I remember seeing him kind of almost fall apart in the drum solo, and it made me. It was shocking because he's he was regarded as one of the greatest of all time, and I remember seeing that and thinking, oh, and it made me feel terrible. But I mean, of course, he's a human and he was sick, and I didn't know that. But yeah, it's really, really hard to see those pillars.
Absolutely.
Man, it's a tough deal.
Dude, for me, my first instrument was the piano, and my grandma taught me when I was about 4, and she was the church organist, and that's where I learned to read sheet music and shit like that as a youngin. Didn't stick with the church, but I stuck with the music.
Yeah.
But my grandma, she's still kicking it. She's 87 or something. But her hands, she's got arthritis, and she can't play as long, or she can't she can play through a full song or 2, but then her hands just kind of go on her, and she's not as nimble. But it's seeing that, man, that really does kind of tell you how we're set up. We're wind up dolls, dude, and
I know.
It's constantly clicking down. we all got different gears, man, and
you're right.
And Lord knows they get grinded.
No, they sure do. They sure do. It's true.
But what was your first instrument the bass, or did you have a different instrument that?
Dude. I mean, I don't know if it was like this for you, Ian, but when I wanted to play drums, and then there was a little band in my hometown in Montana of my friends, and there was already a drummer. Also, my parents, they were super supportive of music, but we had a little house, and I wanted to get drums, and they're like, and then there was already a drummer, and then the cute friend was the guitar player. And so, and all that was left was the bass. I remember being like, ugh, I guess I'll play this stupid bass.
Every man needs a bass, man.
Yeah, dude. And then what happens as every bass player, I think, realizes this, that it's like you've discovered this incredible secret that actually, it's the greatest instrument of all time.
I love it. I love bass so much. Yeah, I like how we all have instruments chilling in the background.
Yeah, it's good.
That wasn't on purpose at all. That wasn't. I didn't. I always keep my.
I always
keep my Martin D15 right next to my 3D printer, just up against the wall within the camera frame. That's where I keep it. That's where it lives.
That's always the spot. Yeah, I just threw this together too, real quick.
It seems a lot of really good bass players seem to follow that path. That
Yeah.
exact same, like I'm blanking on his name. Jimi Hendrix's bassist.
Noel Redding.
Yeah, I think he wanted to play guitar, and then Jimmy actually talked him down to bass. I don't know how true that is. But
No. Ian, he talked him up to bass.
Yeah, that's right. No, you guys, seriously, that is every bass player's story, or almost. There's almost.
Yeah, Lemmy had that story too.
Yeah, I feel like then when there were some really incredible personalities on the instrument, then kids like started I bet now there are more kids wanting to be bass players because of Davey 504, because of Flea, because of Blue to Tiger. Like there are all of these personalities, but pre-social media and like pre-90s, there were definitely some like celeb bass players, but it just wasn't as cool to be a bass player.
And you're mentioning people from kind of if not the most recent era, the one right before it, but you still got like Thundercat and shit headlining festivals.
Oh hell yeah, absolutely.
And bringing back that Bootsy Collins vibe, really that old school soul funk kind of slow jam sound.
I love Bootsy.
And fucking, you can hear it in Thundercat if you know what I mean. If you listen there between the strings, but it's a fun time, man. It's a good time to be alive for music. I feel like rock has taken a back seat. I feel like electric instruments have taken a back seat. I think it's a hibernation. I think they'll come back.
Yeah.
I think
Well, also since rap is really popular now, and it has that strong bass. That's the thing for me. Like I'm a hip hop head too, so like I love those bass lines, especially like '90s like G funk.
Oh, but, dude, there's nothing better. I mean, it's such good stuff. You're right.
Mm-hmm. But to answer your question, I actually picked up bass opposite. I really wanted to play guitar at first when I was in high school, and I don't know, it didn't really like feel well in my hand. Like the strings are too small and too close together, and I don't know. I wasn't really getting into it, and I don't know. But I went to my friend's house.
Guitar is hard, dude.
And he had. Well, it's not that it was hard. It didn't feel right in my hands. I have like these huge mitts.
Yeah, dude, I do too. And it like hurts, and like to make your hand contort into those terrible. Yeah, look at that. Do all Ian's have
let's get a stretch. Let's get our stretch going. Are you? We're all righties. You're all righties.
It just didn't like make sense to me. So
okay, show me your right hand.
I went to my friend's house. There you go. Who had he had a bass, and I was like, let me check that out, and it just like immediately fell in love with it. It was like this makes sense to me. And
that's amazing. That's great.
So I just like that, and I got into Spinal Tap at that same time, and that song Big Bottom, I was just like, damn, that song jams.
100%. That's great. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, man. See for me. I'm a guitarist by trade. I know how to play bass. I own a bass, and I've been playing it since like I was 13. But I never played bass in a band. But I always played bass at like practice after we were all done and shit. So I can almost speak vicariously through the bass player of my band that we met growing up. We were in 7th grade. 13 years old. Our drummer's 12. We're playing bars. We're playing punk rock songs. We got about 4 originals and like 6 covers, and we're trying to fucking make it work. He originally had a fucking short neck Epiphone, right?
Oh yeah.
Like a guitar scale, but on with 4 strings on a bass. But he immediately moved up from that to a Ernie Ball Music Man.
Sure.
Right. And that's
what I have right there actually.
Oh yeah, there it is. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Those are great.
We started getting into more like ska core, hard punk rock mixed with upstream, and the bass
Yes.
becomes so important in that. And
Right. Stingrays are so punchy. Yeah.
oh hell
That's
yeah,
awesome.
man! And that brings me to my next point, which is personally, for me, what my favorite bass solo is recorded in music history, and for me personally, that's going to be Maxwell Murder by the band Rancid.
Oh, sure.
And
never
you're
heard
familiar.
that.
You're familiar with this one. I
That's
mean,
Matt. Is that Matt
Matt Freeman.
Matt.
Matt Freeman.
Yeah.
Yep. Who played under the name Matt McCall when in Operation Ivy.
Oh, cool.
But that's different time. But yeah, that was the first time I really super appreciated the bass as a kid. Listening to that shit, I'm like 9 years old. Got it on the headphones, and I think it was on "And Out Come the Wolves," and I was spinning that shit on the Walkman, and
You're like,
it just
what is that?
it tickled something. I had to like rewind it and play it again because it's so good.
Dude, check this out. So when I was little and I got like a Walkman, listen to cassettes, I love beats. It's really inspired by drums. And I thought all the low notes were the toms of the drums. Like, so I understood that there was boom and then bap, and then I understood the cymbals. But all those other drums, like timpani in an orchestra, as a kid, I just thought that those were the notes. Like, so I thought it would be like boom, boom, boom. You know what I mean? Like, and so because the bass guitar just looked like another guitar, like when I was 8, I wasn't aware of the subtle difference of like it was a little bigger and it had like 4 strings and it just looked like an electric guitar.
Right.
But I always thought it was cool that the drummer was generating that low end, which she wasn't. But like then when I found out, oh, that's like the slightly bigger guitar, I got pretty pumped that like,
That's
oh,
cool.
that could be, because that sounds like drums to me. And so my whole life has been like, how do I make drummers happy? How do I play well with the drummer? How do I,
Well,
how do I
that's the
blend in
rhythm
this
section.
rhythm section? Yeah, man. Yeah,
exactly.
It's everything. It's everything.
If the drummer and the bass player don't vibe, the band's not going to sound tight.
That's so true.
Yeah, actually, yeah, that reminds me. When I listen to a lot of music, I listen to bass. Like Cliff Burton is probably my biggest influence. And when I listen to Metallica, I don't really listen to Metallica. I listen to Cliff.
Right. Yeah.
Like songs like "Jump in the Fire." Like I'm not listening to the. I'm just bop 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 bop, and I just love it.
Cliff Burton, man, that's another tragedy. Jeez.
Yeah, we were just talking about that before we started this. But yeah, that's actually, to answer your question, that's my favorite solo. I'm sure you've seen it. It's really popular. It's the "Whom the Bell Tolls" solo at the very beginning. Of course. Like there's a live version out there for anybody listening or watching this who don't know about it. There's a live version of him playing "Whom the Bell Tolls" in 1986, like right before, like 4 months, I think, right before he died, and he was just shredding on that bass, and it's just and then just and then like he was making it squeal, like which you'd never hear on a bass. And then I just showed that video to everybody. They just like drop their jaw and just like, what is that?
Yeah, he was cool, man. He ran that thing through a bunch of distortion, and similar to Lemmy, like had that kind of almost more like a guitar kind of mindset. He also played a Rickenbacker, I think, for a while.
Yeah, he did.
Right?
And actually, that influenced me because, like I said, I've when I was younger, I wanted to play guitar, so I've got distortion pedals myself. I have a Source Audio distortion pedal, which is really sweet, and I hook that up to a envelope filter and just have this like funky but like real murky, really heavy, kind of like low guitar sound.
Rad.
And so that's what I do. I don't know. Are you into that kind of thing where guitar bassists have that distortion? And
dude, I mean, so my whole thing is like you mentioned Scott's bass lessons and stuff, and I do that, but I make my living playing on people's records. So I live in Minneapolis, and I have been a session bass player. Like I grew up playing in bands and stuff, and I've been in a bunch of different bands and played for a bunch of different artists. But really, the thing that I do day in and day out is I play on people's records. So for me, not being in like the country scene in Nashville or not being in the film scene in LA, I'm in Minneapolis, and so that means I get this wide variety of stuff. So, like for instance, I just worked with this artist named Haley, and she was like, "Oh, I want this to be like Peter Hook, Joy Division, New Order." So that was like Rickenbacker with distortion, right? But then I work with other people who are like, "I want this to be like dry P bass, Pino Palladino, D'Angelo Voodoo," and so I do that. So I mean, you can't see them all, but I have the walls are just lined with bass guitars.
I see about 4 right now.
Yeah, I'm kind of like I'm a real enthusiast about the bass guitar as a concept and as art. I think they're so beautiful and amazing. And then I have a little bit of collector in me. So my whole thing is I want one good example of all of the classics, right? So like I've been on this journey, but then, so, whatever the tune requires, whatever the vibe is. So you're asking about distortion, right? Like if like I love that, but it has to be couched in the right tune. The artist has to want it. You know what I mean? Exactly. Or else I'm not going to force, like I just put up a thing on my Instagram of like blitzing out a preamp and like having a really fuzzy sound, but it was because like it fit the thing that I was just doing.
Yeah, it's a very niche thing.
If you're going for a garage rock sound or something like that, if you want something a little more MC5, a little more Stooges, you can distort that bass a little bit. But see, okay,
and it's so sick. Yes.
I didn't know. Now I didn't know you were from Minneapolis. One of my favorite bands is from Minneapolis, The Replacements. Are you familiar with these guys?
100%. Yeah, of course.
I've seen Paul Westerberg live. I've seen The Replacements live. I saw Paul Westerberg when I was a kid. He did this like blood brother ritual. I was like 11 years old. He went around the stage with a knife. He was like cutting all the members of his band and trying to rub blood while they're like rocking in bed. Well, they're all just like fucking. I don't know what the fuck he's doing, man. But he came out with a half a bottle of whiskey.
Good. Oh, dude,
that was just that. I mean, but yeah, Tommy Stenson, the bass player for the Replacements.
Yeah, Tommy's amazing.
And just a great example of kind of holding it down and not, it's like the kind of bass where if you're not actively listening for it, you don't really hear it. But if you hear the song without it, it's not there.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, just supportive. And Tommy's killing, too, man. Tommy was in Soul Asylum for a little while, too. And I did a stint with them. And then Tommy was in Guns N' Roses, too, man.
Yeah,
he was insane.
Fucking Duff. Him and Duff are good friends.
Yeah, it's very cool. Yeah. Yeah, Minneapolis is amazing, man. Tons of great music. And people don't always think about, like, when you think about the big, like, American music cities, it's typically New York, LA, Nashville, maybe Austin, maybe Chicago, maybe Detroit in the 60s. But Minneapolis has this really bizarre, not bizarre, just diverse, like scope in terms of music. I mean, there was a great hardcore scene outside of Minneapolis in the 90s. Obviously Prince, obviously Dylan, obviously Replacements, Semisonic. There was that whole sort of like alt rock thing happening here. And then, I mean, atmosphere and hip hop and
not Minneapolis, but St. Paul. You got Husker Du.
Of course, yes.
You kind of group them in the same.
Yeah, and I mean that's just across the river. So we let St. Paul in. It's all good.
All right, that counts. I didn't want to offend anybody.
No, it counts.
I know where the lines were drawn.
It's great. Yeah. Right. So I get to do. I'm kind of a weird specialist where like bass is kind of the only thing that I do. And then I just get to do like a real wide variety of styles. I
can tell by your
and vibes.
videos. Yeah, like I've seen a lot of your YouTube videos, and like every one you're doing something completely different, basically.
Yeah.
And what's really awesome about them? So like anybody listening or watching, you have this really awesome energy in your videos that like
thanks, man.
Yeah, like you can tell that you really enjoy what you're talking about. You give like a history lesson basically, and then you show how it's done, like how or whatever, technique. Like what I was watching right before we started this thing was what was it? I don't have it anymore. But it was a bass player I didn't know about. Who like put like a diaper between his strings. And he was playing with like drumsticks. Yeah, that's the one. Playing with drumsticks and stuff.
Yeah,
that was
with
blowing
Peter
my mind.
Gabriel.
Yeah,
that's Tony Levin who played with Peter Gabriel, and so when I came up, I loved bands, but then I would also read liner notes, and I found that I would start to see these names pop up. And Tony Levin played for Peter Gabriel. He played with Yes a little bit. He did a record or two with Yes when Chris Squire didn't, which is not a lot of people know. He also played with Pink Floyd.
Really?
He was in the Liquid Tension Experiment. Really, really an incredible. Yeah, that's him. Yeah, he plays stick too. Look at that stash, man.
Was he a King Crimson by any chance?
Yeah, King Crimson.
He was. Okay,
sure.
that's right.
Yeah.
I thought I recognized him because when I was in high school, my dad had a King Crimson concert DVD, and I just like recognized him from that actually, which is funny because he had that exact instrument right there.
Yeah. When I came on board with Scott's bass lessons, Scott Devine, who runs SBL, is like started out just making videos on YouTube, and then he exploded. And he's an entrepreneur, and he's made this amazing platform. It's like a subscription platform, but he still does all these YouTube videos. But he's just one guy. And so when he brought me on board, he was like, "Hey, will you do some of this YouTube content as well?" So I went from really not having a YouTube presence on my own. I mean, I've done a couple little videos. I'm more active on Instagram, like my channel, but I went from having almost zero, like YouTube visibility to having like, being on a channel that had almost 1 million subscribers.
Yeah.
And it was just wild. They took a big risk with me, but it was really cool because he just basically said, "Do what you want to do." So I've been doing all these things like these album deep dives. So
I can
taking
tell
a
that
record,
you're really into it too.
I'm so into it.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah, let me tell you,
you take a record that you love. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm interjecting here. It's never a risk betting on an Ian.
Yeah. Yes. Right. Yeah, man. I agree. I mean, until one says some racist shit in the council, right?
and then they're technically Ians at that point. That's the beauty of it. It's not just a name; it's a standard of human. We try to keep.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome that you got a platform out of like, and you said you had an Instagram presence before that, but not anything comparable to what you were doing.
No. And I mean, the story of getting in touch with him, like, check this out. This might be like, if you're listening and and you're like, oh, I don't really do music or whatever. Let me talk to you about this, because like, okay, who am I to get uploaded onto this massive platform, right? So I really think about social media in this way. So many people are asking, and they're asking for people to give them things on social media. They're like, come to my show, buy my product, order my thing, check out my abs. You know what I mean? Look at my family vacation, right? It's this ask. Like, don't look at my abs. It's like full on dad bod. But right, it's like everyone is asking and no one is giving. And so I had this idea of, like, I loved Scott and I loved what he was doing at SBL. So I hit him in a DM. Like, I'd started to take my platform on Instagram seriously, and I started to post, instead of like, oh, check out how fast I can play, check out this cool new bass, and like, I'm just going to show you photos of it. I tried to make it valuable. Like, hey, check this out. Here's how I approach this thing, right? So I tried to bring value instead of just being like flossing, right?
Sure.
And after I had done that for a while, I hit up Scott in a DM and I just said, I love what you do. I'm good at X, Y, and Z, and I will do it for you for free for a year. And so if there's anything that you need from me, just consider it done. And he hit me back. He started to follow me, started to check out what I did. And then he hit me back and he was like, hey, thank you so much for that offer. why don't you do this and do this video project, and by the way, not for free, I'll pay you this much money. Okay. And I did it, and he liked it, and he was like, dude, now maybe try these few things. And I did it, and he liked it, right? But it was this attitude of not going into it saying, here's my day rate, here's how sick I am, right? It was more of like, hey, I feel confident about these aspects of what I do. And I think I can help bring something of that. Like, I'm more of like a rock and pop and hip hop and EDM guy, whereas Scott's more of like a jazz guy. And so I just saw this need. I was like, hey man, what if I leaned in that direction and brought in more people on that side? Like I did a big Rage Against the Machine breakdown video because I loved Tim Comerford.
I think that's your most popular video.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, that was a great video.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like he's a smart dude, and he understood that, like, oh, there are other people out there that might really love this platform if it wasn't just all about jazz, right? So that's what I brought to it, but it wasn't like he just found me out of the blue. I went after him, and then I didn't ask for anything. I just gave.
That's called taking initiative and not having an ego.
Hell yeah.
Those two things together will get you a lot farther than being selfish and having a lot of pride.
Hell yeah. And I used to do it wrong. I will say, like, when earlier on in my career, I used to think that being professional meant that I needed to make demands of, hey, Ian, will you play on my thing? Yes, and this is what I charge, and here's what I charge for a rehearsal, because I'm trying to appear professional. And that's such garbage. And it just turned people off. And then I found the best thing, I think, like, if you endeavor to be a creative person, a creative Ian, I think the best thing that you can do is follow the things that you think are cool. Like if someone says, hey, will you do this thing? Like, hey, will you be a part of this? And it raises, everybody knows what that feels like. You get excited. I mean, like, cool sounds sort of shallow, but you know what I mean? Like, you get filled with that, like, oh, this sounds like a cool opportunity. That's what you follow. Like, that's what you have to, like, yes. And then that leads to money. It does.
Step one, and profit. But when you... But it's great. It's great to have that mentality because you really have to have some kind of initiative to take opportunities. But yeah, like what you're saying about how something that feels cool, like I you might get an offer to play a gig and it might be a cover band for a wedding and something like that, versus some up and coming artist that feels something new, like it's exciting, it's fun, or something something you're having fun with,
Dude, that is a great point. And I, and no shade at all to people that do the wedding band, cover band thing. I do some of that too.
Wedding Singer is one of my favorite movies of all time.
Oh, it's the best. Adam Sandler. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. But if I get an opportunity to do something that pays less, that I'm more excited about the artistry, about the hang, about something about it that feels cool. Everybody knows, like, everyone has a different gauge of what cool is. And if you get that feeling of like, oh, I want to be a part of this, I feel like if you follow that and you're good at what you do, geez, it's a pretty winning combo,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So for those listening who aren't already aware, would you like to explain what Scott's Bass Lessons is?
Yes, Scott Devine started this thing called Scott's Bass Lessons in the UK. Started off just doing YouTube videos. It became this super intense platform for, it's a subscription-based thing, right? And there's tons of content on it. There's seminars and courses and interviews and gear stuff, and it's insane. And it became the most popular platform, like subscription-based music platform, regardless of instrument in the world. It's bigger than Fender Play. It's bigger than Drumeo. It's bigger than TrueFire. Like, there are all of these sort of like subscription-based music services, and SBL is the biggest one, and it's bass, which is so weird.
It's not only do I get ads for it all the time, or it's just there's there's a ton of YouTube videos, but I actually just joined it myself, and I haven't very recently. I haven't had much of a chance to check it out because I'm involved in this podcast and another podcast that I do. So, I definitely. But I mean, what's really cool about it is that I paid. I forgot how much it was. I think it was like something like $120 for a year of unlimited lessons from all like hundreds of instructors, giving all sorts of different, like if you want slap, if you want to learn how to read music, if
there's
genres.
I mean, I work there.
It's unlimited.
Yeah, exactly. I work there, so obviously I'm biased, but dude, like every time I think about like one aspect of the platform, I'm like, just that's worth it. Like we just did this partner program with all these companies that do these deep discounts on gear. So there's like super cheap strings. Like when I was starting out, like I changed my strings all the time. So like just that would have been worth it for me. Like regardless of any of the content, like it's insane. And then there's great, like Michael League from Snarky Puppy teaches there, and like Sean Hurley who plays with Mayer, and John Button who plays with The Who. Like it's really really rad. And I do this thing called Student Focus too, which is like, so say you're working on something, you want to submit a video for feedback. You submit it, and then either Scott or we tag team this program, watches it, and then does a video back to you. And like, I mean, like that program alone, I think would be worth, like, so every aspect of it, I think is really valuable. That said, sometimes people complain that there's so much, like there's so much that you can watch. It's just crazy. And we're working on trying to get better about like recommending things, like having you take a survey and then having the site say like, okay, yeah, here's where you should start. Check out this course. Because that can be kind of overwhelming because there's so much in it. It's crazy.
Yeah. Since I just started, I'm like, okay, what do I start with? But I like the Player's Path thing is pretty.
It's incredible. Yeah, and Player's Path is this thing where it starts super simple. Right, like if you've never even picked up a bass before, then you can start, and it guides you through. It's like you learn how to read, you learn how to play different styles, you learn how to, interact with all kinds of different styles and genres and instruments. And I mean, it's insane. And then it's sort of like you take this test at the end before you move on. And yeah, man, a lot of people have found that to be like, I'm doing it myself. Like I make a living playing this instrument, but I'm in that Player's Path zone too, man, and I love it. It's great.
Yeah, so it's not just for beginners; it's for people of all different levels.
Dude.
Well, that sounds like turning life into a video game, which I'm always for.
Yeah,
I agree. Yes, I totally agree.
Up your stat points. That's what practice is, right? You got to grind.
I guess you could say it's kind of like Guitar Hero in a way, but you're actually playing bass.
Yeah. And like you can do it with there's someone playing along with you. I think Scott did all the recordings for it, or you can do it without the play along. And I mean, it's pretty rad.
I agree with you. I think this is a great program that with these highly recognized bass players and whatnot. What are you watching, Ian? What are you watching?
Oh no, nothing. I don't know. I think I'm in Minneapolis, and that may actually be a protest outside.
Oh, is there a live protest?
I think it might be.
Dude,
I think it might be.
Switching up the episode. What's going on in Minneapolis right now?
I know.
Let's get Ian on the streets in here.
I know, man.
What's going on here?
There was a man that was killed by federal agents. So it wasn't Minneapolis police, but it was federal agents that killed a man in Uptown, and I live in Uptown. And I mean, it's an intense deal, man. This happened a week ago, I think. Damn. Maybe even more. His name's Winston Smith.
Fuck, man.
Yeah. So we got some folks outside.
I like how you said, no, I'm not watching anything. I'm just in Minneapolis.
there's
yeah, it's true. It's become kind of part of the deal. Yeah. Yes.
Dang, man. Yep. I haven't been. I've been working overnights and sleeping all day. I haven't watched none of this stuff. That's crazy, man. That sucks. It's
Yeah, it's
another.
really unfortunate.
Is it like another George Floyd situation? Another the same thing has been going on over and over and over and over.
There was talk about this guy produced a gun, maybe fired it at police, but there wasn't any body cam because it was federal agents. So people are wanting to get to the bottom of it, but there's just not a lot of video evidence of it. So it's complicated. But yeah, yes, another black man was killed by authorities, and that sucks.
Damn, that's wild, man. That sucks, man. Fucking rough times in the mid north of the United States.
Yes, sir.
And in the United States in general, it's a wild time, you know. We're coming to grips. We're popping some pimples. We're dealing with some shit that America's got a bad skin, man.
I know.
We got to get proactive in there. You know what I'm saying? That's
I know.
That's how I feel. And I think the more that shit like this gets publicity, the better off we'll be. But yeah, we're right in the thick of it, man. That we got the pus coming out. We're squeezing. We're popping these pimples, dude.
It's super intense.
But man, that's rough, dude. I'm just skimming the article right now. Fucking
yeah. And then there was they shut down a street in Minneapolis, and then there was someone that rammed their car into the protesters and killed one of the protesters. That happened just a few nights ago.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
History really has.
So it's becoming this really polarizing thing locally, huh?
Yes, for sure. Although the guy that did it was super wasted and didn't and apparently thought he was braking and accelerated and then was claiming he was Jesus Christ, or there was a narrative around like, oh, maybe he's a white supremacist, but they're finding that that's not the case. He was just like incredibly intoxicated and had a bunch of like DWIs and just super.
Or he could have been a drunk white supremacist. I mean,
yeah,
they're not mutually exclusive.
That's true.
I don't know why I'm laughing. I don't know, just the way you said that, I guess.
Sorry, I make light out of the worst situations. It's how I've learned to cope with trauma. I apologize if it.
Yeah, we actually
it's all
just
good.
had.
I do too.
But I mean, this is serious shit, man.
Definitely.
And I thought I thought you were like watching a movie. That's why I
I
know. It sounds right out the door.
You were just playing music all of a sudden.
Where you're like waka waka.
That's kind of weird. That's kind of unprofessional for a YouTuber.
yeah, just be like watching something. Yeah, and I think they moved on to another block now, but
just like went down the street.
I think so.
Interesting. Well, anyway, let's probably get back to like bass players and stuff. I was actually wondering. So who are your major influences?
Oh man, I have a bunch. I was really into Geddy Lee from Rush. I also came up loving like Victor Wooten, who played in Bale Fleck Tones.
He's phenomenal. Yeah,
incredible. I came up loving Les Claypool with Primus.
Of course, yeah.
Of course, Flea with the Chili Peppers, Tim Comerford with Rage. But then I had some jazz influences too. This guy named Brian Bromberg, who's like in the smooth jazz scene in L.A. I actually went to this jazz camp and saw him play a lot and got really inspired by him. Of course, Tony Levin with Peter Gabriel. Maybe I said that already. But like all of the bass heroes of the 90s, I loved. So like all the people that played with the Shredders,
that was a big
Stu
time.
Hamm and it was an amazing time to come up a bass player.
Like
and so,
pretty much, I guess you could say once like Cliff Burton and Lemmy and Bootsy Collins kind of came on the scene, like a lot of people were like, "Oh, it's cool to be a bass player."
Totally, Bootsy, man. Bootsy's my.
I'd
rather be with you.
Well, yeah, but like,
I'd rather be with you.
I mean, a lot. It's been said that like Bootsy's like the Jimi Hendrix of the bass. Like he plays it like a lead guitar.
Right.
And which is just I love it when people take a genre or an instrument and turn it into something else.
Yes.
That it wasn't meant for, basically.
Oh, totally. Totally.
Mm-hmm.
It's and does something with it that is innovative and yeah, man. Bootsy was amazing. And I love too that he started out in James Brown's band when he was a teenager. Like he was like 17. Yeah.
Have you seen the movie? Have you seen the movie? What is
Get On Up?
Yeah, Get On Up. Yeah. Where they're like flying into Vietnam.
I was really disappointed. I was waiting the whole movie to see Bootsy, and he never showed up.
Oh dang! I haven't seen it.
I thought he was in it.
No, they mentioned him.
I thought he was like one of the dudes.
No, they like. Well, no. There's a part where everybody quit. Like his entire band quits, and he's like, "Well, what do we do now?" And it's like, "Well, have you ever heard of Bootsy Collins?" And he was like, "All right, let's get that guy." And then next thing, and then that's it. But yeah,
you ever
he's not in the movie, but it's a great movie though. James Brown is one of my biggest influences.
Bootsy talks about how he got caught doing like cocaine or some shit.
It was acid, I think, actually.
Oh yeah, okay. There you go. Thank you. Acid.
And
he got caught doing acid during the show or something.
He joined George Clinton and
That's
Parliament
right.
Funkadelic, and then and so he changed Parliament by his lessons with James Brown with the beat on the one.
Like, oh, sure.
Which basically you start the beat on you start a note on the first beat, and then you can just do whatever you want to do
in the middle.
As long as you get back to that one, and that influenced me a lot. So whenever I pick up the bass, I do that exactly.
It's all on the one, baby.
Yeah.
What I learned from James Brown is that you always got to take it to the bridge.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
Like you don't just build the bridge, take it to the bridge.
There's the bridge.
There's a space between the second chorus and the bridge, and then the third chorus. There's got to be like a pre-bridge and a post. It's got to have a gradual incline and decline.
Of course, yes, of course.
And I'm really glad that you brought up James Brown and the movie Get On Up, because I was actually going to ask you, Ian, if you had seen it, because there's a big part that's really awesome where he's talking to his band, and his saxophone player is saying like he couldn't stay. There was a problem with the drummer, like the beat he was having a problem with it, and James Brown said, what is he went to the cymbal and drums, like what is this thing? He said, that's the cymbal. And he's like, no, what is it? And he said, it's a drum. That's right. And he pointed to the guy's guitar and he said, what is that? That's a guitar. He's like, no, it's not. It's a drum. What's this? It's a bass. No, it's a drum. What? Your saxophone? That's a drum. And he was just saying to everybody, like, everything's a drum. So I was actually wondering what you probably thought about that. So I didn't realize you hadn't seen it, but I guess after hearing what I just
now
said,
I need to.
All right, would you consider? Okay. Let me simplify that question for you. Would you consider the bass to be a percussive instrument? 100%,
100,000%.
Well, there you go.
I do these clinics where I talk about. I call it Groove Matters, I've done some that are called Thinking Like a Drummer. Because yes, rhythm is the whole game. Like if it has a bunch of notes, but there's not a groove to it, there's not a rhythm, it's meaningless. But if there's one note, like you can play one note and make it groove, and people will dance like it's meaningful.
Absolutely.
Right? So I love that. I need to watch that movie now because I love that idea.
It's a wonderful movie. Yeah. I was really disappointed because James Brown is actually my first musical influence. Like when I was 7 years old, I was a huge James Brown fan. But I was really disappointed because it never like saw the light of day pretty much. It just came out and nobody noticed.
Crazy.
Well, I mean,
when did it come out?
2012, 2013. Okay. It was a pretty realistic depiction. Like
no, it was 2015 or 17, something like that.
It did not pull any punches when discussing James Brown's upbringing, his mother being a
Sure.
prostitute, his father abusing his mother in front of him.
There's all of
They
that.
and
It's
then
pretty much
and they
it's
kind of
Ray,
draw
but it's
they draw
different.
parallels between him watching his father abuse his mother and the fucked up shit he saw in a post or a middle of Jim Crow South, out in the woods and shit. And then from there to a brothel with his mom got away from his dad, and he staying with his mom at the brothel, and that's when he's learning how to sing and how to talk to people, how to get strangers in off the street to come, come check out World War I soldiers to come check out the brothel,
Crazy.
And he's got such a wild upbringing, but then they kind of use that not to explain away or forgive his transgressions when it comes to domestic violence.
It did not shy away from him being like a fucking asshole.
He'd just be like, "What you doing, bitch?" Bah! And it's
right.
like, damn, dude. And that's James Brown. That's who he was.
His daughter actually wrote a book shortly after he died about how horrible her upbringing was,
dude.
And living
sometimes the
father.
best musicians are the worst people, and we just got
because it's like
we just got to make peace with that. Like sometimes the best music comes from the worst people, and we can enjoy it without glorifying, without putting their actions on a pedestal.
Yeah, there's definitely
sense.
this thing of like it's the best. Sometimes the best musicians, like the positive word for it is passionate, but the negative word is like afflicted, or it's like an addiction where like if you just have to make music constantly, it's at the expense of, it's the expense of everything else in your life. And that's something that I think like people that do it for a living really do struggle with, of like this thing of like trying to balance that passion and, that the happiness that it brings you from overgrowing and overtaking other sides, like if you have a family or right. I mean, that's something that I struggle with for sure because I love it. I eat, breathe, sleep. I mean, I'm always thinking about it, but I also have a family and I love them, right? And so, but it's really difficult for me, honestly, because I'm always thinking about playing on something or or practicing. I mean, I love the instrument and I love music so much that it can start to overtake, and that's when my wife needs to just.
So you're saying I get what you're saying, that like music can be such an obsession that it's such a great creative outlet that you want to pour your heart and soul into it, and that takes time, and that time can draw away from the time that you have to spend on your loved ones.
Yeah, dude. And if you add narcissism and alcohol and drugs into the equation, it's
the
disaster.
X factor. I think the X factor is the abusive childhood. I think that's kind of what that movie is trying to portray, is that this kid just got the shit beat out of him.
That was a very important part in the movie, and then it doesn't really like stay on that. It like immediately switches to years later. He's outperforming the Rolling Stones, and
that's a classic story. You guys, I heard about that story before it even. For that movie ever came out, years before that, where it was James Brown and he what was it, the Ed Sullivan Show or something like that?
I think so.
And Rolling Stones were going to close it, and he's like, "Rolling who? Rolling what? Who the fuck? Fuck these motherfuckers!" And then they talked him into playing, and he just fucking burned the shit down.
Right.
And the Rolling Stones were like, "Oh fuck, man!" Like, and then they went back to England and just ripped them the fuck off. They just were just like, "Oh, I guess we got to be James Brown now." And then where does Mick Jagger get these on-stage motions? You know what I'm saying? Where does he get these weird his contriving that he gets it from James Brown? That's his influence.
Of course, yeah.
It's interesting following that chord to see where it traces back to,
Oh, absolutely, man. Yeah, it almost always comes back to like black musicians. Almost always.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, you go back to like W.C. Handy and shit, and fucking, Jelly Roll Morton, and fucking.
Oh, for sure.
Some old school
swamp blues guys. Yep.
Some fucking Scott Joplin, dude. Like, I live in New Orleans. That's
okay.
So there's a deep history of blues and jazz, and
absolutely,
you could say the birthplace of R&B, and I mean, it did take a trip to the to where your general area with the Chicago blues and the great post Civil War diaspora of the Reconstruction era, where you had a lot of former slaves going up north to escape the Jim Crow South, and that and they brought music with them, and that shit like it's so cool to see how that changes from your geography, from where you're where you're living, who you're around, and now you got this you got a little bit more like little on it. You got a little that Chicago blue. You got a little distortion on it now. You're not it's not country blues. It's not that bar jazz. It's not that Django Reinhardt. It's that it's that muddy water. It comes out a little sharper.
For sure.
And that's where I guess there was a lot of like Motown and stuff up there, I guess.
Oh well, that's what it led to.
But that's where Parliament.
That's where that's the pinnacle.
That area.
That's you got to say Motown is the pinnacle of music of the north of the United States, right? Midwest, northern Midwest.
Like, have you guys ever had a chance to tour? Have you ever been to Studio A or like Hitsville, USA in Detroit?
No, man. Only in my dreams after staying up all night watching like Michael Jackson true VH1 movie special.
Sure. Or like there's a great doc called Standing in the Shadows of Motown. Oh yeah, the Temptations movie. There's a great doc too called Standing in the Shadows of Motown. And there's this crazy thing that like I just feel like people don't understand this about Motown. Like, okay, why Detroit? It's like Berry Gordy, who was the founder, had this idea of like, well, I live in Detroit. I don't live in LA. I don't live in New York. So I think I'm just going to look around and see who's talented here. And I mean, he didn't import talent. He was just a dude in Detroit. And there was a girl that was the daughter of Mr. and Mrs. Franklin just down the street. And her name was Aretha. And he knew that she could sing. Do you know what I'm saying? And then there were these dudes that sang on the corner. And they became the Temptations.
Just like in the movie. Well, there were a lot of dudes that sang on corners. That was kind of a cultural thing. I think he kind of just saw an opportunity and took it.
Yes.
On his way to work, he could see the people on the streets singing and dancing and fucking putting on like moving in time with each other, like choreographed singing. Just dudes standing on the street. I mean, it'd be the equivalent of somebody going up to, some guy like rapping on a corner today being like, you got to come to my office.
Right. Yep. And I mean, that's the crazy thing about him too, is that the belief in his community, like he didn't think, oh, well, I'm not in New York, so I can't do it. Or like, I'm not in LA. I guess I got to move there. It's like, no, man. Like he looked around at the talented people around him. I mean, that was super inspiring to me. I was on tour and I got to do a tour of Hitsville, USA. And like, dude, I just remember it actually changed my life. I remember coming back to Minneapolis thinking like, wow, I wonder like what singer do I know here that I should start doing a project with? Like instead of thinking like, oh yeah, or like, yeah, I mean, who do I think has the talent to be a big deal, and why don't I treat them as such instead of pining away to just move to Nashville or move to Los Angeles? Like, what if I just tried to do it here? Like, that was a big deal for me, and that was all like Berry Gordy. And Berry Gordy had weird stuff too. Like, he wasn't always a great dude, but that beginning spark of like him seeing that, like, wow, I think there is some talent here, but then like taking the risk and like believing in his community, that's balls, man.
Yeah, he was the first to say support your local scene.
Hell yeah, he was. Yes, it's
Buy
so
local.
Cool.
Detroit son.
Yep, for sure.
My grandpa's from Detroit, from born there, and little young for World War II. His older brother went, but I mean,
dude,
the whole vibe there.
You gotta go. You gotta check out Motown.
I've been to Detroit. I've never been to Motown. I've been to Detroit to visit family and stuff. I've never been to Motown.
Next time.
Yeah, for sure. I just don't like. I just don't like driving in the snow, man. It's slippery. It's very slippery, and you don't see the curbs. You don't know where nothing is. There's a mailbox. It's under snow. You don't see it. But anyway, man, like that's an amazing thing. You can get You know, you can get bands that create a location as opposed to the location creating the band.
Dude, that's a
You know?
really great way to say it. Yes. Where like you put like Barry Gordy put Detroit on the map, you know, in terms of not just being known for Ford, you know.
Yeah, but the economic base that the car boom had for that city is what provided the situation where there were kids that had time to sit out on the corners and sing in the first place.
So
right?
true. You're
Their
totally
parents
right.
had factory jobs. Their parents were working in factories. They were, oh, love you, die, love. Like, why are you going to be doing that if you're out having to work the fields or fucking, you know, you're out having to fucking get a job at a young age and you're poor as shit, you know? You're in a good economic state to be able to do that in the first place. I think that, dude, and that was a special situation that could pop up in. And I think as Detroit fell, so did, you know, Motown Records and Detroit's influence on the musical landscape as a whole.
For sure. Absolutely right.
I'm actually, this is a somewhat related, mostly not, but still a little related. Have either of you ever heard of a band called Zeal and Ardor?
Can't say as I have.
Let me type it out.
No, I can. Zeal and Otter, Otter, right?
It's that right there. Zeal and Ardor.
Ardor.
Yeah. This
like
is
Ardor.
Yeah, it's actually one guy. Well, he has a band, but it's one songwriter. His band is Zeal and Ardor. He's a black guy. He combines really old, like chain gang Mississippi down south, dirty blues with black metal.
Oh, crazy!
Yeah, it's like satanic. It's like you hear like a chain gang in the background, like one of his songs is based on the beat of a chain gang.
Crazy.
Just that, like the metal hitting metal, like shank, shank, and he's playing blues over it, and then
like
all
straight
of a sudden,
straight out of the Brother Where Art Thou.
Yeah,
soundtrack.
yeah, exactly like that. Like the opening scene of "Oh Brother Where Art Thou," and then you hear like him just like singing just this Delta blues, and then all of a sudden you hear like really heavy, fast guitar, and he's just screaming. And it's it's amazing.
So cool.
Yeah,
I gotta check it out.
Definitely. I anytime somebody reminds me of like the Southern blues, I bring that up because he's very underground, as you can probably imagine.
I'm listening. I'm listening to a song called "At the Seams" right now. I mean, it sounds kind of like a bit goth, a bit like a song that would appear in the movie 13 Ghosts.
That's probably not a good example.
You know,
with
a little Counting Crows, just and like if Counting Crows and Typo Negative beat up the dude from Mayhem.
How about this? Let me do this real quick.
Oh, here's the double bass. All right, here's the metal part. All right, just got to a metal part.
Pause that. And
that was fun though. I like the live reaction there. How much did this band pay you to plug them like that?
I wish they paid me. But anyway, check them out. I just tried to share my screen, it didn't work. But anyway, never mind. Check them out. Zeal and Ardor.
I will.
They combine. Like I love that when artists combine two completely different genres.
Yeah, for sure. Super exciting.
It could be a disaster or it could work really well. Like I mentioned earlier, G-Funk. Like that was incredible when in rap when it first started. It was like a simple beat that started from disco actually.
Yes.
and then when it came to the West Coast, they added like Parliament Funkadelic and Ohio players and stuff, and like whoever would have thought of that, it turned into something amazing. Or like what's another good example of combining genres? I guess Rage Against the Machine.
Yeah, the rap rock thing. I was just gonna say, like, even though it produced some sort of questionable, like, nobody wants to talk about Limp Bizkit, but everybody wants to talk about Rage Against the Machine. You know,
Rage Against the Machine did it well, and Tim Comerford.
Dude, everybody was bumping Limp Bizkit back in the day. Okay,
it's so true. Everybody was behind
the Nookie, dude.
Yep. I remember I had a copy of that first record, that $3 Bill Y'all record that had the Faith, the George Michael cover.
Yo, I
on it.
And he's in the camera. He's like, "I got some time now with your devotion."
Yeah.
But no. But if you, I also have a Limp Bizkit LP, but it is the Rollin', the Urban Assault Vehicle remix done
with Redman and
Method Man, and Swizz Beatz, and DMX and Swizz Beatz. And it's on a 12-inch rap vinyl single.
That's what everybody was like. I'm done with
instrumental, and then the total. no, dude, that Swizz Beatz remix is like it slows it down. It's like makes you want to do this.
It was popular for a solid minute, and then
fuck you, man. The early 2000s will live forever.
But
it'll be back.
Speaking of that genre, actually, I wanted to bring this up earlier when we were talking about bass being a percussive instrument. The band Korn, with their bass player, he said that he's more of a drummer than he is a bass player.
You're talking about Monkey with a U?
Oh,
you're talking about Monkey? Fucking Monkey,
like if you listen to him, you're listening to a drummer like playing all these drum notes on a bass.
The kick drum is his head then, because he fucking does this shit right with his bass up. It's like the strap is all the way tight.
Yeah,
he's like,
dude, that's Fieldy, man. Like Fieldy had this thing like where he would play this percussive style, like he would slap the bass, right? So he would play like here. I don't know if you guys can hear this.
Yeah, I can hear it. That's real loud. Yeah.
You know, where he was totally treating it like a drum. Like slap, 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 and then you combine these.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then, you get some nasty riffs in there.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it's like it sounds like a new thing. But yeah, I mean that's back it to back it to back it to back it to back it back it back it to back. It's like it's drums. It's drums.
Yeah.
For
absolutely.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I love 5-string basses. It's like I never see the top strings get used. It's just you're still just fucking laying back on the fucking.
Fair point. Yeah, fair point. Yeah.
No, dude, that's awesome, man. That sounded good. Fucking, you ever play in a thrash metal band?
I mean, no, I was never really into thrash. I got into there was some metal, but I was more of like a prog dude. So I was into Rush, which led to Dream Theater, the heaviest, and I got into some hardcore music, but I loved Between the Buried and Me. I loved Dillinger Escape Plan. There's a band too. God, man, a band from Brooklyn called Candiria that I absolutely loved. And man, they did a wild thing where they fused bebop and really ambient music with super heavy breakdown metal, and they're incredible. I think they're still going too, but yeah. So, but no, I never really got into thrash. Whenever a beat went to I couldn't groove to it. So I really felt stuff when it was big halftime breakdowns. Yeah, then I felt I was excited.
The low to mid tempo,
yeah,
man, the fast bass, and that's going back to Rancid and Matt Freeman with Maxwell Murder. He was a master of that kind of pick in hand, probably about a millimeter of pick exposed on his holding it right here.
Yeah,
fucking one of these and he's just doing this the whole goddamn time, man.
Yeah, right.
And I mean, you do it long enough, I guess you get that fucking rhythm, man. I could never do it more than like 3/4 time on that shit. It was like fucking. I ain't about to hit it like that.
I've never been fast either. I really tried to get fast, but I never got it. So I'm a slow bass player.
Yeah, that's my problem. Is like my fingers move really fast, but like it's like too fast, I guess, like for my own good. And I'm just like I'm just playing like too much, and I'm like it sounds like shit because I'm just like playing too many notes.
Yeah.
But I'm actually really into doom metal and stoner rock.
On that note, I'm gonna grab another beer there.
Okay. Yeah, like I mentioned at the very beginning of this podcast, there's a band called The Well, which is really amazing. If you're into like stoner rock or doom metal, they were in our first Rock Talk episode because their guitarist and lead singer he's an Ian. And which reminds me of Black Sabbath. That's my favorite band of all time. Well, besides Pink Floyd, but Geezer Butler, man, that guy is.
Oh, Geezer Butler's incredible. Sure. Amazing.
Yeah.
Yes.
And what do you think? I also mentioned Pink Floyd. What do you think about Roger Waters?
I mean, I was never like a huge Roger Waters fan. Like I didn't know about him until, like I was not a kid anymore. But I loved, dude, honestly, this is not cool to say, but I was a Guy Pratt fan. Like I came up on so Guy Pratt was a bass player that they had, like, I think he played on the Delicate Sound of Thunder.
Okay, yeah, I know. Yeah, that and Division Bell.
Exactly, yes.
Right.
And dude, Guy Pratt has
he's really
channel.
Good. Yeah.
And he's definitely funny.
Yeah.
He's funny though, man.
Right.
Like he does. Yes, check out his YouTube channel. He does like play-alongs, but he's hilarious. Like I think he maybe even does stand-up a little bit. He's a delight. So I came up in that era and then went backwards, and like I mean, dude, Money. I mean, it's like one of the coolest.
That's probably the first song I learned.
Yeah, like it's unbelievable, and so you have to love Waters for that. But yeah, like I just sort of missed. It was like before my time, and then I didn't have anybody that was like, oh, you need to check out Dark Side. You need like it was. I just was like, oh, Division Bell was in the store. I remember when they made the long box CD for Division Bell. I mean, this tells you how old I am. Like there was a little light on it that blinked.
Oh, really?
In the original packaging, and I remember like that was like a huge feature. Like nobody else had a blinking light on their CD, But I bought it. I was like, what is this? Wow. And that I mean, the Division Bell got me into Pink Floyd. Yeah.
Nice.
I found for Pink Floyd, dude, I found my dad's record collection, and he had Animals, The Wall, and probably like 3 more.
Got to have Dark Side of the Moon in there.
Yeah, he had Dark Side. He had
Animals is my favorite.
What was that? What was that early psychedelic one with the pink elephants?
I don't know about pink elephants, but there's
that's some early weird shit with some pink elephants.
Saucer Full of Secrets, but that's probably not it. Oh well, there's no pink. There's a pig, but that's not until
Animals. Yeah.
Anyway, I was gonna bring him up because he's like a really good bassist. Not like he's very unlike like your Les Claypools, your Fleas, your Boosies, John Paul Jones. All the Steve Harris, all the big timers. Like he's not like them who are like playing pretty much like lead guitar on bass. He is like he does the job of bass, whereas he's like holding down the beat
for sure
for David Gilmour and Rick Wright to just do their thing.
Right. Yeah,
so
it made them sound good.
Yeah, exactly. And like that, what's so great about Pink Floyd is like they do so much with so little. Like less is more in a lot of their songs. But Yeah, he plays like very simple bass lines that like a lot of people are like, yeah, there's nothing to it, but it's just if you listen to a stereo system with a lot of good bass in it, you just focus on it. It's so soothing, and that groove like that you brought up many
Yeah.
times. It's so good. So like he's definitely one of my favorite simple bass players, I
Yes,
guess.
for sure. And I mean, the simple bass players don't get, I mean, a lot of people know Roger Waters, but sometimes people kind of like shit on some of the simple bass players, like, Adam Clayton for U2, for instance, is another guy who like,
No, I like him.
oh, I do
Yeah,
too, man. I actually really like him a lot. And because, yeah, it's not about, Roger Waters isn't thinking bass first. He's thinking
yeah,
about song
yeah.
first.
Like yeah, he's written a lot of their songs for many of the other instruments, and he's a lyricist too.
Right. So yeah, he
Yo,
just
man,
happens to play the bass, and that's cool.
Mhm.
I sang "Wish You Were Here" at my mom's funeral, and
Oh,
I played it on that guitar.
wow.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing because you pointed the wrong direction.
Uh,
I don't know how to.
That's not anything to laugh about.
I don't know. Yeah, why are you laughing at my dead mother, man? Is it because in an episode of The Simpsons in 2017, Homer, Lisa, Marge, and Bart visit New Orleans, and at some point after Homer
That
ravages
happened?
himself on an assortment of food from various New Orleans establishments, he decides that he needs to take a piss, so he walks into St. Louis number 2 cemetery right past the pyramid where Nicolas Cage will be buried at one point, but right past the pyramid to the mausoleum where my mom is entombed, and then pulls down his pants and relieves himself, urinates on my mother's grave.
what?
What would you say to Matt Groening?
That is entirely why I'm laughing.
What? That's not real.
It happened. Yep.
I never know with this guy. That's what I was talking about earlier in the beginning when he
No, this
mentioned-
isn't. No. This isn't some like, oh, I'm wacky, I'm making up a bit. No. There's an episode of The Simpsons where they go to a bunch of different places. One of them, they pass Nicolas Cage's pyramid. They go off screen. That's right where the mausoleum where my mom is buried in. It was a mausoleum
Wow.
used for Polish immigrants in the 30s who died of cholera or some shit.
Wow.
Some kind of like outbreak of the yellow fever or something. I don't know. But
Oh.
all the cemeteries in New Orleans are above ground, right? That's why we get so many hauntings and so many cockroaches. It's a constant battle. But
Crazy.
we're a below sea level city trying to do
Yeah.
drainage and sewage, and
Oh
man,
my
it's
God.
it's
Yes.
wild, bro.
That's crazy. Well, what did you say to Matt?
If I ever see him at a party, I'm gonna be like, hey, hey, Matt, let me talk to you, buddy.
Well,
I'm
you
never,
won't see him. You won't see him at Ian Con.
never. Yeah, I'm gonna
No.
use it as a unless we can get the mats organized and develop an alliance. I know a few, as I'm sure you do.
Oh my God, that would be a huge conference,
And
far
actually,
bigger than Ian Con.
I feel like the Mats
Con?
and the Ians have a long history of.
I've had a battle actually on my own Facebook because one
Don't take
time,
every interaction with the rogue Matt to distract you from the overall goal of peace, brother. Okay.
Yeah, no, I made a Facebook post and I said Ian is great, and then I shared it to the Council of Ians and I said, hey, everybody, just comment on my post so that all my friends would be like freak out, like, oh my God, there's so many Ians, and then it did, and my friend Matt, he got jealous, so he went to his Facebook group, Millions of Mats. Remember, it's called Millions of Mats. There's like at least like, or at the most, there's like 1,000.
Right. Yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
3,000
Yeah.
at the most.
Yeah.
And
Poorly organized.
he got them to attack my Facebook, and like 3 of them did.
Oh my God.
Hey,
It
that's
sounds like
Aaron
sounds like a
Matt.
fight. Sounds like a fight
Yeah.
burn.
That sounds like an attempted coup.
Yeah.
That did not go
But they
on.
gave up
That's
so
four.
quick.
That's
And,
4 Mats total out of you said 1,000.
Yeah, yeah, it was yeah.
Those
It
are
didn't
some
work
rogue
out.
extremists.
That's true.
Right.
Okay, don't let them speak for the Council of Mats or whatever they are.
Millions
Yeah,
of
no.
mats.
Sure.
Millions.
Millions Mats
of
March.
Anyway, there was another point I was going to make going back to the simple bass players. Roger Waters being a very good example of a simple bass player. You know who I hate? I don't know if I hate him or if I hate the leader of the band for making him make these bass lines, but I don't know who's in charge. It's probably the guitarist of this band, but Cliff Williams of
Oh, sure.
AC/DC.
That's so interesting, though, dude. So, like, why would you like? Why do you like Roger Waters but not Cliff?
Because all of their songs, the bass line is open E.
Oh, hold on. That's
Dude,
not
how
true.
smart is that? How smart is that? He has his left hand free to do whatever he wants.
Yeah, it's true. He can point.
Hey, you.
Yeah.
Hey, you.
But how many
He can
times
drink
has
a
he done
beer.
that? How many times has he done
throw it?
any of that? None.
Probably not many. All right, here's the thing. Because
I would say that's probably Malcolm's idea.
maybe,
Or Angus.
but like, dude, so Back in Black, the one thing I'll say about Back in Black that's so cool is the bass line on that is sneaky awesome. So it's E, D, A. It goes bonk, da da. But he doesn't play the A. He plays a third of A, so he plays this cool harmony. He goes don't, da da. And it's almost like a guitar part. Like next time you hear Back in Black, check out Cliff's playing because it's super dope. It's super dope.
I like how you pointed at me aggressively, like check that out. But
it's really good.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
What is it, like an A sharp?
I'll take your word for that. But
What-
yeah,
where's
a lot of their songs are just open E, just quarter notes.
Hey man, they found a formula and it's working for them.
I love AC/DC. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like Malcolm is an amazing rhythm guitar player
For sure.
and then of course there's Angus, who's just like
Oh, Angus is amazing, dude. Check this out, Cliff. This is Cliff's era Stingray too.
Wow.
He always played a late '70s Stingray, and I bought this bass because I actually love Cliff. I saw this, I'm like, oh, that's the Cliff Stingray. Like I had to have a good Stingray, and I was like that.
I love how you come on here. I'm like talking shit.
No, it's great.
So
Dude,
my least favorite bass player happens to be one that you also have a custom bass for.
I'm just flossing, just like showing off my. I'm like, ooh, check out my bass.
Bass too.
This is cool.
Hold
this
on,
is like.
Damn,
hold on, it's not every day you get to see somebody pedal backwards so fast.
I'm not taking
I'm gonna
back
enjoy
anything.
this.
In fact, I'm gonna spread this to other bass players who I think he might actually be an Ian, the guy from Judas Priest.
Oh, Ian Hill.
Yeah.
Yes, you're totally right.
But more open E's, which I guess was like an '80s thing.
He played some shit though that was so sick.
What's the point of the bass? To be low.
Yep.
What's the lowest note you can play on a bass? An open E.
Unless you have a 5-string. Unless you have a 5-string.
That's
it's
true.
still an open. It's still an open
No,
E.
it's a
What's
B.
the?
It's an open B is the
It's a
5-string.
B. Yeah.
Does it come up? It doesn't come down. It comes up. The next extra string.
It goes
add a
down
low
in
string.
tone. Yeah.
They add a low string.
I thought they just made. I thought they just put another guitar on the bottom of it. I just thought it's like.
Now you know
guitar-
with that
they just started with the
6-string
guitar
bass
strings.
though. With that 6-string bass, they add the low one of the 5, and then they add another high one.
Yeah.
And so you
it's
get that thing going on.
E, A, D, E, A, G, or.
But I won't be able to play a G chord. What the fuck's the point?
You will not. That is true.
Come on.
You will not.
There's B on both ends instead of E on both ends, which is interesting. But I guess that's a
do
very.
the fingering still work? How does that work? Do the
So
fingering?
it's actually all tuned in fourths. Like the typical 6-string bass tuning is B, E, A, D, G, C. And
it's
some
C.
people
Okay,
it
my
is.
bad.
Some people tune that high string down to B so that you can do more sort of like chord voicings.
But it's not
but
intended for chords, right? Because it's a bass. It's more
I mean, yeah, it's
I mean,
the
you
sixth string
you can play chords like
for sure.
If you go past the 12th fret, there's a lot of chord action you could probably.
Is it just me, or is there usually like an inherent dissonance in a bass chord?
It depends. Like if you're on the lower, sorry to interrupt.
No, it's all good.
If you're on the lower end, it sounds really mucky. But the higher you go, like if you're on like the 7th, 9th fret, it sounds pretty good. That's where a lot of Motorhead songs are at. And then if you go past the 12th fret, it actually kind of sounds like guitar at that point.
All right, well, I was asking the Ian that gets paid for his opinion on bass. I appreciate your input. Ian, same question.
That is true, and also wide intervals. So, like instead of playing something like a power chord down low, like if you take the root in the third, but you take the third up an octave. Like think about Take a Walk on the Wild Side. Boom, zoo, 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 zoo. Those bass chords don't sound muddy because the interval is so wide. It's a third up an octave, and they call it a 10th. So it's like, where you're playing the G here, and instead of playing I can't do this. Instead of playing the G and the B, you play the G and the B here. So those two strings. I don't have it plugged in.
So is that Walk on the Wild Side? Because I've never even noticed that was a bass chord in Walk on the Wild Side.
Yeah, for sure.
I love Lou Reed.
Yeah. It's technically it's two different basses. It's actually really cool. The low note is played on an upright, and then the same guy that played the high note on an electric.
So you get that
double pass.
You get that kind of like the chromatic sensibilities of a stand-up bass, of a fretless bass.
Yeah.
With a million different tones between an inch.
Yeah.
And then you get the fretted one to hold it down, I guess.
For sure. For sure. Yeah. It's a cool vibe.
You know what I like doing a lot, especially, as I mentioned earlier, I have my distortion pedal with the envelope filter. I like doing a lot of octaves, like which sounds really unique, I guess.
For sure.
Like just simple songs like "I Want to Be Your Dog." I just play like 7 and 9 to 5 and 9 or 5 and 7, and just it sounds really cool that way.
That's awesome. Octaves are great. It's one of the best.
Yeah, but we're now in the an hour and 42 minutes. We usually at this point we always ask each other like, should we start wrapping it up and have final thoughts, or this is a podcast, so we can go on for another hour.
Dude, I would love to go on for another hour. I got kids, man.
I got you.
I gotta help put these kids to bed.
Giving us enough of your time already.
Well, yeah, we really appreciate it, especially like a fellow YouTuber. I mean, we're just starting out on YouTube, but we have our podcast going, so. No, I really appreciate it, especially like since like also as a bass player, like I watched a lot of bass, like damn it, sorry, I started legging out. It was really interesting watching your videos, and actually as for me, I've been on and off bass for about 15 years, but like I pick it up and then I play, but I honestly, when I just play by myself, I kind of get bored of it, so I put it down for a couple of years and I pick it back up. Sure. And videos like yours and some other YouTubers really like influenced me, so I actually recently picked it back up again and started on Scott's bass lessons, and so I really appreciate everything you do. So,
oh man, thank you so much, dude. That makes my night. Makes my night.
You are an actual influence on me.
Oh, dude, thank you, Ian. That's so awesome, man. And I mean, I'm like dig into there's a feature of the site that people don't use. A lot of people do, but not enough people do. It's the campus. There's like a huge community there, and I'm there and I'm talking to people, and there's all kinds of threads and there's like community member challenges where they're like, hey, let's all learn this tune and let's all post about it. And it's rad. It's really great. It's called the Campus. Like if you go to the site, and
Okay.
I'm available there too. Obviously, I mean we've been communicating via Facebook Messenger, I guess, right? But
Yeah.
like I'm in the Campus there too. Like if you ever have
Okay.
any questions or like I hang out there all the time. And so it's a great community to be a part of, and I'm glad you're doing it. I'm glad you picked it back up.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I just bought this thing about a month ago.
Awesome.
Yeah,
So cool.
a
P
Fender
bass?
jazz. It's a jazz bass,
Oh, it's a
actually.
jazz bass. Right on, man. I
Yeah.
love jazz basses.
Yeah, I just went to Guitar Center and I was gonna buy one from this guy on Facebook Marketplace. It was a 5 string, cheaper. It was a Squire, and then I went to Guitar Center and played the exact one that he was going to sell me. I was like, "This is cool." And then I looked at that, and then I was just like, way more about it. And so I
It's
just
awesome.
put in the extra, like, I don't know, $300.
Classic 4-string Fender Jazz
Mhm.
is just like hard to beat it, man. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's sweet. And I was one more thing I was going to ask you before we end this. Uh,
Please.
Another YouTuber, he's fresh on scene. You mentioned Davey 504 earlier.
Mhm.
He's great. Do you know Charles Berthoud? I think is
Yeah.
his name.
Yeah, Virtude? Yes, for
Yeah,
sure.
he's like new on the scene, but he's just amazing. Like I've never seen anybody so good.
Oh, I know, he's crazy. And dude, he is a result of Davey 504. Like Davey put
Yeah,
him on.
Is
Um,
Davey 504 from New Orleans or from Louisiana? Because that's the
he's from
area.
no,
he's from Italy.
he's from Italy, yeah.
Why is he stealing our area code then?
That's funny. I'm sure there's a story with the 504, but I don't know what it is. It was like the thing he chose when he was like a
Yeah.
little kid.
He
But
probably
he's
I wouldn't be surprised if he's not incredibly influenced by the culture and musical heritage of New Orleans.
well, who isn't, right?
Right? But
Come on.
yeah, he plays a lot of slap bass, but Charles plays a lot of tapping,
Yeah.
which is very unique for bass. And
Yep.
he is so good.
Dude, don't want to like spoiler, but he just did a course for SBL that'll be
Yeah,
coming out
I
soon.
heard about that. Yeah, he
Cool.
he mentioned that on a recent video.
There you
And
go.
that was another reason. I keep getting all these ads, which I'm not going to complain about because if I'm going to get ads anyway, I'd rather get for
A
that.
bass, yeah.
Yeah,
You're like,
and
all
then,
right, stop
then,
bugging
like-
me already.
like you and Scott are all over my YouTube suggestions, and I'm just like, fuck. And now he's on there. I was like, all right. Well, and I just bought that again, so I'm picking it up again for like the 6th
Oh, I
time.
love it. I
And
love
so
it,
I'm like,
man.
fuck it, I'm gonna just do it. And yeah, so I'm like, I haven't had much time to get involved into it, but yeah, that's what's great about it is that it's at your own speed.
For sure.
Yeah,
And dude, if you need a little push, like if you feel like I have it but I'm not using it, get on the Campus and
Okay.
take one of those like challenges. They do them every week, and it's awesome. It's super fun.
okay, yeah. If you don't mind sending me a link after we're done, so I don't forget,
I'll
I'd
send you
really
a link.
appreciate it. I'll check
Let's
it
do
out.
it. Okay.
All right, cool.
Cool.
All right, well,
All
I
right, you
guess
guys want to do last thoughts?
Yeah, well, that was my last thought or final call. Yeah, so yeah, go ahead.
All right, well, we've been talking about the bass today. The bass is a very important instrument. Like I said earlier, it's one you don't always hear when it's there, but when it's gone, you realize that it's not there anymore. There's something missing. All right, and it's just like the okra and the gumbo. It's just like the roux and the stew. You need to have something to hold it all down, and that's what the glue is in a band is that bass, and that's why every band always needs a bass player, because it's not the luxury vehicle, it's not the Ferrari,
It's the Honda Civic.
it's not what you it's not what the kid picks up when he's just trying to get laid. It's what the kid picks up when he's in love with an instrument. And that's why the bass and bass players themselves are such a unique bunch of potatoes, and I like every last one of them. So if there's one thing that I got to say about this episode, you'll never win the bet if you don't throw in, and the song will never and the song will never sell if it's got no low end. Thank you very much.
Yeah, well done. This guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, how do I follow that? Do I get to leave it? Do I get
Give
to
me your
leave a
last
last
thoughts, man.
thought as well?
Dude, get real with it. You got kids, you got a life, you come from the heart, man.
Here's the deal. Don't apologize for the things that you love. So the longest time for me, the longest time I would sort of say like, oh, I don't know, and I would apologize, or I'd call things guilty pleasures, or I would try to be cool on the internet so that I would maybe get that gig or impress that person. And I think one of the best pieces of advice that I ever got from someone is if you're struggling to find your voice in whatever it is that you do, like if you're struggling to find your passion, you're struggling to find out what it is that you have to say, the thing that you're concealing from the world and from yourself, the thing that you feel most scared and vulnerable about, that's your shit. That's actually your voice. So the thing that you feel like, oh, I don't want people to know this about myself. I don't want people, for me, it was how nerdy I was about the bass. For the longest time, I tried to conceal that because I thought it would keep me from getting cool gigs. But the instant I started to actually talk about how passionate I was about the knurling, the knurling on these knobs. Do you know what I'm saying? Like without saying, oh, I know this is geeky, but no. I'm going to say these domed knobs are incredible and they date this instrument to this era. And whenever I started to talk about those things that I felt really passionate about, what I found is that there are other people that were too, right? And it also gave people permission to talk about the things that they loved. So it's really, really hard to be yourself on the internet. And you guys are doing a really good job, by the way, of being yourselves on the internet. But that's what I would say to anybody still watching this, like, ask yourself, what are you trying to hide? And instead of trying to hide it, face it forward.
That's great. That is great, actually. I love that. that was a great quote.
Well said. Well said. Hey, thanks so much for joining us, man. This has been a real
fun. Dude, the pleasure's been all mine, man. You guys are great. Thank you. And I hope I get to hang with you guys at Ian.
Yeah, absolutely.
2022.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Yeah, I'll keep you posted on it. Whether or not you join the Facebook.
And don't forget, open invites for all Ian's.
Absolutely, yeah.
For Mardi Gras next
Mardi
Gras.
Yeah, there's the Mardi Gras.
March of 2020. March of 2022.
Incredible.
We're gonna try to march some Ians. We're gonna see if we can march some Ians.
That's like the Ian Con Light. Yeah,
I love it.
Well, the beer might be, but
there's like the big thing we're talking about is the Incon. Like we've centralized that it'll probably be in Chicago, but at the same time he's talking about New Orleans, and I'm up for it too. I mean, that's closer to me than Chicago is, So but yeah. Anyway. And if you ever want to come back for another episode and talk with us, it doesn't even have to be about basses. Like, what else are you really into? Like, what's
I love movies. I love coffee.
Me too. That's my other podcast. Coffee.
Yeah, really?
we just did a movie podcast episode about a movie called Coffee.
That's true. He is not lying. We did just.
That's crazy.
Yeah, my other podcast. Yeah, if you want to check it out, it's Movies So Bad They're Good, Midnight Classics in Camp, where we make fun of bad movies and then praise like good movies. And actually, I just got picked up by another YouTube company, so they're gonna actually produce my show. It'll be a new show, a new title. So I'm actually gonna be like a lot bigger than I was.
This guy's selling out right here.
Congratulations, dude.
Yeah, thank you.
Congratulations.
I like how you're saying I'm selling out when I'm bringing you with me.
Well, that's the goal, right?
The two of you are selling out together.
I didn't say it was a bad thing.
But so the new, the old show, which is podcast only, is Movies So Bad They're Good, Midnight Cult Classics in Camp. But the new show is going to be Cult and Trash Horror Movie Grind.
Dude,
which
fun.
is Yeah. So basically, same thing. We make fun of old movies and then praise like the good, kind of shitty movie cult classics that we love. And so so Coffee was one of them that he was talking about, the old 70s blaxploitation with
yeah, for sure.
All who did the
Foxy Brown
soundtrack
with,
on
Pam
that?
Grier.
Yeah.
Everybody loves the sunshine.
Yeah,
Who's that?
Roy Ayers.
Roy
That's the
Ayers.
one.
Yep. Exactly.
I'm actually just started to get into like the old 70s soul. But
that shit is so good, dude.
Yeah.
So good. That's
So
when I
cool.
when I would work and do like AV shit, setting up lights and projectors and stuff. I'd have a Bluetooth speaker on me, and nobody ever complained if you did like a 70s or like
That's
a
what I noticed,
Motown
too,
soul
because
record,
I'm
right?
the DJ at my work, and everybody complains about like my heavy metal because like I play like a lot of like early Metallica, like I was saying, Slayer, and everybody complains about that. But like that's what keeps me energized. But then when I put on soul, everybody's like, "Yeah, this is fucking awesome."
Yeah, for sure.
But
Yep.
anyway, I'll probably close this up before we get into a whole new conversation. But
Sounds good.
once again, Ian Allison, thank you for joining us. Everybody, check out his YouTube, check out Scott's Space Lessons. And are there any other projects you'd like to plug?
I'm super active on Instagram. That's where my
Okay.
community is of the stuff that I do. The stuff I do with Scott is for sure on the platform on SBL, but also on YouTube. But Instagram, I'm on there all the time. I have a great
Okay.
community of people. Try to answer every comment, every question, and every DM. So far, I can do it. So it's getting harder, but I really try. Like if anybody leaves me a comment, asks a question, sends me a DM, I try to get back to them,
Well,
every single person. So yeah, if
you're
you
at,
want to
man.
check out what I do, it's Ian Martin Allison on Instagram.
Okay, cool.
Ian Martin
Well,
Allison.
then I'm even
Yep.
more thankful that you caught my Facebook message when I like sought
Hell
you
yeah.
out.
I actually don't check Facebook that much because I'm almost, I mean, I upload stuff from Instagram to there, but I don't check it as much. But anyway, I'm glad I did, man, because it was a treat hanging out with you guys tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're welcome back anytime, too.
Right on. Cheers.
Hell yeah.
All right. Well, let me just close this up real quick, and I'll conclude this episode of Having a Beer with Ian. So,
Okay.
yeah. Appreciate it, everybody.
Look into the camera with your eyes. Oh, wow.
What the fuck was that?
I want to run for mayor.